in the core chamber of the Galactic Empire. Beneath banners stitched with 1,000 suns, the declaration was already rehearsed. Words had been sharpened for hours, diplomatic poetry, imperial rhetoric, every syllable aimed like a dagger. The High Executor of the Empire, adorned in crested bone ivory armor and a crown forged from collapsed neutron metal, stood before the holostream. He blinked both his sets of eyelids. To the bipedal species of Terra, colloquially known as humans, half the council watched in amusement, the others in silence. We recognize your efforts. You have colonized. You have invented. You have survived your own extinction many times. This is impressive for insects. A few chuckles fluttered from the council's upper tier. But the Empire finds your aggression, your noise, and your culture of chaos a threat to universal harmony. Thus, by sovereign decree of the Grand Accord, your species is to be brought into compliance. Peacefully, if possible. Completely, if necessary. He paused, waiting for the translator worm to catch up in the human tongue. The worm wheezed. The final sentence emerged like acid. This is your invitation to surrender. On the bridge of a Terran diplomatic cruiser, somewhere near the border moons of Divrak, a woman in a dark gray coat stirred her tea with a sliver of cinnamon. The mug read "Best Grandma in Kansas." She wasn't a grandma, nor from Kansas, but she found the phrase soothing. She watched the transmission 3 times before speaking. Was that supposed to be threatening? She asked aloud, though no one else was on the bridge. The AI blinked to life on the panel. A floating green smiley face with a monocle. Interpretation, moderate-level condescension, with mild emotional provocation and a 74% chance of underestimating your capacity for violence. She sipped. Generous odds. Across the stars, in an obsidian-spired council hall carved into the shell of a dead god skull, the Galactic Council convened in private. The Zalaar ambassador, thin as bone but encased in crystal exoskin, tapped their elongated fingers against the dais. They are small, the ambassador rasped. They cook with fire and cover themselves in plant fibers. Their chief export is sarcasm. A Roktan general, 8 feet of coiled reptilian muscle, snorted. They taught fire to fly, and sarcasm to kill. You're afraid of them? I'm respectful. They've lost more wars than we've fought, said a younger delegate. Surely their time is over. No, a whisper came from the darkest corner. It was Elder Namak, a bent being from the Archon fold, who spoke so rarely that younger species believed him mute. They are the only species we've ever studied whose myths are more dangerous than their weapons. They have a word, Baba Yaga. We don't know if it's a witch, a warrior, or a bedtime threat, but it appears in a dozen languages, even before first contact. A cold ripple moved through the room, and the High Executor asked. Namak leaned forward. They gave it to her. Aboard the diplomatic station at Accord orbit, the ceremonial chairs were arranged in a ring, silver for the aliens, a single mahogany seat for the human. No arms, no back support. A joke. She walked in with her hands clasped behind her back, humming something old. A Midwestern lullaby, if any of the gathered had known. She wore a plain gray coat. Boots. No weapons. The Roktan representative straightened. The Zalaar one blinked rapidly, cycling through pheromone defenses. The lesser species twitched, confused by her heartbeat, a strange, slow rhythm they couldn't parse. Thank you for the invitation, she said, setting down a small metal box. The High Executor tilted his head. Are you the ambassador? I'm the warning. Silence followed. The box opened with a hiss. Inside were cookies, fresh baked, still warm. What is that? Someone whispered. A gesture, she said. From Earth. Made with sugar, wheat, and an amount of butter we are legally obligated not to confess to. She picked one up, bit, chewed. The others stared, suspicious, distracted. Hungry? One of the junior delegates, unable to help himself, took a cookie and sniffed it. Then bit in. A pause. His mandibles quivered, then stilled. His pupils dilated. He sat back down very slowly, as if hearing music no one else could hear. She smiled sweetly. Now, I understand you've declared war. War is not the term, the High Executor said carefully. We offer correction. It would be easier for you. For whom? He hesitated. Your species. The galaxy. Ah, she said. I've heard that before. She glanced toward the ceiling, as if recalling something long buried. You ever heard of Carthage? The Zalaar tilted their head. Is that a planet? Was, she said. Now it's a metaphor. And what would you be then? Asked the Roktan general. Their queen? Priest? Military tactician? She considered. I suppose I'm what you send after the tacticians fail. That stirred something. And what is your name? Asked the High Executor. She smiled wider. You wouldn't believe me. I insist. She folded her arms, voice soft. They call me Baba Yaga. The temperature shifted. Not literally, but the feeling in the room did. Air thinner. Lights colder. Every species there, even those with no oral tradition, no understanding of human folklore, felt it. Like a whisper in a language they didn't speak, but instinctively understood. Later, in their war rooms, the Empire would replay the footage. They would scan every frame, looking for clues. Some found the cookies disturbing. Others, her tone. A few, the shoe she wore, mud-flecked old. Worn in a way that said she'd walked through blood and kept walking. But they all missed the moment. The exact second her eyes flicked, not at the diplomats, not at the guards, but at the hidden lens embedded in the stone. The one only a handful knew existed. She'd looked straight into the Empire's eye and smiled. On Earth, transmissions came through in broken waves. Panic bloomed in some corners. Politicians cried for defense. Corporations marketed panic gear. Influencers filmed apology songs. But Baba Yaga never returned. Her signal was faint, warped. She was somewhere beyond reach, sipping tea in the void. Some thought she had died. Others knew better. The last message she sent was brief. No visual, only voice. Tell them I tried. And somewhere far beyond the rim, in a quiet moon colony, left unmarked on any map, a creature twice the size of a dreadnought cracked from a long-forgotten stasis cell. Its flesh shimmered between dimensions. Its mind had been created by 6 mad gods and a disgraced empire. It had been sleeping, but now it was hungry. A beacon lit up, directional. It moved toward her, waiting. And on a nearby ridge, under a black tree, the woman stirred her tea with the same sliver of cinnamon. No armor, no fear. She looked up, smiled, and whispered, finally. The fleet arrived like a promise, gleaming, arrogant, and out of tune with the silence it entered. 30 Imperial dreadships, flanked by swarms of smaller strike vessels, descended toward the Terran periphery with banners unfurled and engines humming in perfect synchrony. They moved like dancers, choreographed by centuries of unchallenged victories. One commander described the scene as a procession, not an invasion. Another, younger and less poetic, called it a galactic parade. None of them expected the silence. No resistance. No counter-signals. No last-minute pleas from Earth. Just a yawning, wide-mouthed stillness across the stars. Even the Terran satellites, primitive and clunky, drifted like ghosts, broadcasting old music and outdated memes. An encrypted Earth signal #438. Blinked on screen. Welcome, strangers. Free parking below. It pulsed in Comic Sans. The alien crew stared at the font. For too long. Aboard the flagship Imperator's Reign, Commander Drell Vox of the Zalaar race frowned. He tapped the translator gem embedded in his throat. What does parking mean? Ambiguous, the AI answered. Could imply a trap. Could imply hospitality. Could imply sarcasm. Terrans are unhinged, he muttered. Commence landing sequence. They did. They landed. Onto a moon. Not a base. Not a city. Just a carved stone surface with lines painted like old Terran roadways. Someone had painstakingly written loading zone near the crater edge. Beside it, an ice cream cart. Melted. Then came the music. Something crackled through the comms. Static at first. Then brass. Then drums. Then marching band music. Terran origin. Bold, cheesy, victorious. A voice boomed cheerfully. Congratulations, you've conquered New Nebraska. Population: 1 possum, 5 robots, and a vending machine that sells disappointment. Silence again. General Ra of the Rocktand bared his fangs. Is this mockery? No, whispered a junior officer, a pale-skinned Amari. This is bait. The first fleet disappeared 3 hours later. No explosions. No distress signals. Just gone. Drell Vox rewatched the footage obsessively. Ships flying in V formation. A shimmer. A flicker. Then empty space. The only trace was a floating muffin tin. It haunted him. Empire Command authorized escalation. The Second Fleet launched orbital firestorms over Earth's suspected military zones. Forests burned. Mountains cracked. Oceans frothed. And then, out of the ash, came the laughter. Not over comms. Not in voice. In code. Encrypted into their weapon diagnostics. Hidden in coolant pressure logs. Appearing in random bursts, as whispers in their neural feeds. You're so very brave. Do it again. We love fireworks. We're still watching. One Rocktand ship received a package mid-warp. A metal box. Inside, fresh-baked muffins. Blueberry. Warm. Commander Ross screamed until his claws broke. Somewhere between the Andal fields and Terran orbit, Baba Yaga sat barefoot on a floating hull scrap the size of a church pew. Her coat was buttoned neatly. Her tea steamed against the cold vacuum. A transmission blinked on. Admiral Sokel of the Vayari, a thin, whispering species with liquid eyes, appeared. Human representative, he said carefully, we ask for clarity. What is your strategy? You have not deployed fleets. You have not mobilized planets. And yet, the Empire stumbles. She nodded. Yes. So are you bluffing? Or stalling? She raised one brow, as if to say, must I choose? Sokel hesitated. You're kind, you don't make sense. Only if you expect sense from a people who make war out of boredom and art from tragedy. You're hiding something. We're always hiding something, she replied, with that soft lilt like a nursery rhyme. That's why you should have asked us who built the monsters. He blinked. Built. She sipped. Then, tell the council they've stepped inside our house. And we eat what comes in uninvited. She cut the feed. Empire panic set in by day 6. Entire fleets stopped responding. Orbitals scrambled. Weapon signatures didn't match expected outcomes. Their own bombs exploded before firing. War machines failed to boot. The humans hadn't fired back. They'd simply opened the door. Intelligence reports came in erratically. Intercepted screams, laughter, humming. One Imperial tech officer discovered her own biometric data replaced with a line of Earth poetry. Beware the smiling ones, for they have nothing left to lose. Then came the incident at Theta Base. The station's AI received a delivery request. When it opened the dock, it found a janitor in a mustard-stained Terran jumpsuit, pushing a mop. He mopped for 9 minutes before anyone stopped him. They interrogated him for 4 hours. He said nothing useful, except to ask about the council members' childhood traumas, asking gentle questions until 3 alien officers began crying and one confessed to stealing from his mate. The janitor was later found missing from his cell. The mop remained. DNA analysis suggested the handle had been grown from Imperial commander's bone marrow. The Empire began whispering ritual warfare. Others said psychological weapons. But the Zalayar, shaken and too proud to admit it, still believed they were fighting peasants with clever tricks. So they sent the Chimera Protocol. Protocol 77A, the monster. It had no name. Built in deep lab forges where light refused to go, it was the apex of engineered terror. Pieced together from a dozen conquered species. Teeth adapted for titanium. Mind linked to a planetary mainframe. Immune to flame, cold, acid, light, and fear. The Empire sent it with one directive. Eat the human. They dropped it on an unmarked outpost. No cities. No resistance. Just Baba Yaga. Waiting. A chair. A cast iron pan. And a bowl of hot stew beside her. She stood slowly as the monster approached. 3 stories tall, pulsing with biomech armor and teeth like furnace doors. She looked tired. The Empire's high command watched from a hidden feed, breath held. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She tasted the stew, then set the bowl down gently and said, "You poor thing." The monster charged. The feed cut. 1 hour later, it resumed. No monster. Just her, sitting on the same chair, stirring the stew again, a faint burned scar on her cheek. She looked at the hidden camera and said very softly, "He was hungry, but I've been starving longer." Somewhere far beyond, in a galactic cathedral of war maps and burned-out strategies, Admiral Drell Vox collapsed into a chair. The Empire had not lost a war in 4 millennia, not because they were kind, but because they never underestimated an enemy. Until now. Until they mistook Terrans for clowns. Until they saw laughter and thought it meant weakness. Until they saw kindness and assumed it meant softness. He whispered to no one, "We thought it'd be a parade." The junior officer beside him, trembling, replied, "It is. A funeral parade. And we're the ones marching." In that moment, across hundreds of screens, one final Terran transmission blinked in. A single message. No signature. Just an old Terran idiom, one the translators debated endlessly for hours. Don't poke the witch when the woods are quiet. And somewhere, deep in the Empire's Central Fleet data vault, a name had appeared. Not uploaded. Not typed. Carved. Baba Yaga. The file refused deletion. The cursor blinked. Then a second message appeared beneath. "She's already inside." The chamber smelled of ozone and failure. Once a sanctum of dominion and policy, the hall of imperial accord now trembled with frantic murmurs, twitching mandibles, and the soft drip of condensation from nerves no longer steeled. 32 delegates of the Galactic Empire had gathered beneath the obsidian vault, but none stood with ease. This was not a meeting. This was a reckoning. The central hollow pillar flickered, attempting to load the last footage recovered from Theta Base. Static bled through the air like smoke. The footage cut to black. Then to her, sitting. A woman. Human. No armor. No entourage. Just a chair, and the way she stirred a spoon in silence. She didn't even flinch, whispered Overseer Tlar of the Kellery. His mouth parts trembled as he spoke. That monster, Protocol 77A, was designed to outthink and outkill everything. It took 2 galaxies to build. And she stirred stew. The rock-tanned general leaned forward, claws scraping the table. "She ate it, didn't she?" "She ended it," corrected another delegate. "No explosions," muttered a guilt TI strategist. "No toxins. No sound. Just silence." And then she looked at the camera. That last detail passed through the room like a cold hand on a throat. The High Executor entered, the echo of his boots hard as gunfire. He did not sit. His cloak trailed like spilled ink. "Explain," he said flatly. "Explain how this folk tale is carving through fleets we spent centuries perfecting. Explain why we are losing." No one answered. Then, finally, Elder Namak, the Archon Fold's voice of myth and memory, wheezed to life. "She is not the weapon," he said. "She is the consequence." Some scoffed. Others leaned in. Namak's voice rattled like leaves over a tomb. "You wanted a war. She brings the ending. That's what Baba Yaga means. In their culture, she is not evil. She is inevitable." The executor narrowed his eyes. "We have conquered cultures with 1,000 gods. What is one name?" "Not a name," Namak said. "A function." They projected a map. Entire sectors now marked with Terran fog. Places the Empire once held unopposed now simply gone. Ships disabled without trace. Officers resigning mid-command. Planets reporting hallucinations of children crying in languages no one recognized. The humans were not fighting. They were unraveling. "Perhaps it's an internal collapse," suggested one noble. "Terran chaos infecting itself." "Then why?" asked the Rocktan general. "Do they win more the less they do?" Silence answered. Then a new voice. The chamber door opened. She entered. No guards announced her. No ships accompanied her. And yet no one moved. She stepped forward with the gentleness of falling snow. Her gray coat was unbuttoned. revealing a simple linen shirt. At her hip, a pouch of loose tea leaves. At her feet, boots stained with something black. "Thank you for convening," she said. "I wanted to speak in person." They should have shouted her down, should have arrested her, should have vaporized her where she stood. But none of them did. Instead, the high executor lifted his chin and said, "You're trespassing." She said, "Funny thing about invitations. Sometimes they're hidden inside threats. Are you here to surrender? I tried that. You called it weakness." The room flickered. Lights dimmed, not from power failure, but because she was near. The Empire's strongest species felt small. Her heartbeat filled the air like a drum beneath the floor. "Why you?" the Kellery delegate demanded. "You are not a queen, not a general, not a weapon. What gives you authority?" She looked around slowly. "I'm the librarian," she said. A pause. "I read the old stories. The ones you missed. The ones where pride walks into strange forests and forgets to leave breadcrumbs. The ones where monsters beg for mercy and get a lullaby instead." Sokel of the Veari swallowed. "Are you saying this is cultural warfare?" "No," she said gently. "I'm saying you walked into our fairy tale and didn't know who the witch was." The executor slammed his fist on the console. "We are not afraid of bedtime stories." She nodded. "You should be afraid of the ones who survived them." Another projection blinked on. A live feed. One of the Empire's hidden colonies. An alien child, a Zalaar girl, was kneeling in the dirt, drawing pictures. In front of her, a human soldier. No gun, no mask, just a book. The soldier read aloud. The girl laughed. Her laughter echoed into the council chamber, sharp and innocent. The high executor hissed, "Propaganda." The soldier closed the book, bowed, left. The girl turned back to the dirt and drew the witch's house. Legs of bone, fence of teeth, smoke rising from its chimney. Her parents found her 3 hours later. Still drawing, eyes black, voice whispering in nursery rhyme Earth hadn't taught her. "Where did she learn that?" someone whispered. "She didn't," Baba Yaga answered. "She remembered." "No," the Rocktan said, voice breaking. "This is impossible. You can't weaponize myth. You can't win wars with bedtime stories and pie." Baba Yaga tilted her head. "Have you ever eaten a pie made by someone who still remembers hunger?" A long silence. "Your empire is vast," she said, "but your arrogance is wider. You never studied our restraint. You studied our history, but not our grief. You thought you could break us because we laugh. But we laugh because we've already broken and still kept walking." The high executor stood slowly, hands curling into fists. "You don't understand," he growled. "We're not just fighting for control. We're fighting for order, for harmony." "I know," she said. "That's why you can't survive chaos." She began to turn. He barked. "This is a declaration, then, of total war." She paused, turned back, and smiled. "No," she whispered. "This is a warning of what happens when the monsters call the witch into the woods." She stepped into shadow, disappeared. The chamber lights stuttered. The hollow pillar rebooted and showed a single new file, time-stamped to the present moment, untouched, unhackable. One line of Terran code, Baba_Ga, /inside now, and beneath it a whispering subroutine began to play. Not in any known language, just a lullaby. And somewhere far from the chamber, an ancient imperial vault unlocked itself and opened. The wind on the dead moon was a lie. There was no air, no atmosphere. Yet still the dust danced in spirals, as if some unseen breath moved it. A broken chapel stood at the center of the hollowed crater, its stone walls half buried by time and war. The sky above was streaked with the thin red lines of war satellites, blinking in orbit like uncertain stars. She sat in the middle of the crater, on a wooden stool. Her coat was off, folded neatly. Beneath it, she wore a loose shirt the color of dried ash, sleeves rolled to her elbows. In front of her, a pot, simmering over an open flame somehow unaffected by the vacuum. Steam curled upward like a question. She stirred with a long-handled spoon, her hands calm, movements unhurried. She looked for all the galaxy's wrath, like someone preparing lunch. From the ridges above, the chimera descended. Its arrival was felt more than heard. Gravity adjusted itself around its form, bending subtly with every step. The ground cracked with frost as its limbs, part bone, part writhing muscle, part unknown alloy, dug into the lunar soil. It moved like a nightmare in fast forward. Too fast, too deliberate, too designed. 3 hearts beat inside it. 2 were synthetic. 1, rumor said, was borrowed. Its skin rippled with sigils that shifted every few seconds. Adaptation glyphs, encoded from hundreds of species. Acid glands, memory spines, ocular shielding, radiation weaves, Terran-resistant musculature. It had been built to kill her, and yet it slowed when it saw her. She stirred. The scent of something impossible to smell in space reached it anyway. Nostalgia, garlic, heat, blood, something human. The creature reared up on its hind limbs, unfolded rows of blade claws, and bared its furnace-lined maw. A screech followed, designed to rupture auditory canals across 15 species. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She gently ladled soup into a bowl and set it on the stone beside her. "For you," she said softly. The monster lunged. Faster than plasma, faster than thought. It reached her in a blink, and missed. Because she wasn't there. She was behind it, one hand on its neck, the other on its spine. "I know," she whispered, "I know." It twisted, trying to adapt. Defensive glands fired. Searing vapor hissed across her skin, but she didn't burn. Because what it emitted, what it became, was everything she had already survived. Her body moved with grace older than training, older than instinct. She didn't dodge, she flowed. Each motion curved with prediction, not reflex. She'd read its creators before she ever met their beast. The chimera howled, its voice splitting into layers, trying to disorient her. Sirens, children, explosions, apologies. She stepped through the noise. It struck with a tendril of compressed gravity, aiming for her chest. She caught it, bent it, fed it back. The moon cracked beneath them. The monster changed shape, desperate, pulling from every terror it knew. Claws like Terran tank blades. Eyes of fire. A chest that opened into rows of caged teeth. A voice that pleaded, "Surrender. Please. I was made to win." "I know," she said again. "That's the tragedy." It lunged again, this time not as a beast, but as a boy. A human child. 10, maybe. Face bruised. Voice quivering. "Please," he said. "They made me like this. I didn't ask to be." She paused. Her eyes, for the first time, softened. That's what all monsters say. And she hugged him. The form shattered. The boy dissolved into smoke. The beast screamed. Then the scream folded inward. She stepped inside it. One moment she stood on the dust. The next, inside the creature's neural chamber. It was cold, womb-like, black stone and data coils. She walked through it like it was a church. Screens blinked on. Footage of Terran wars, genocides, executions, laughing crowds, despairing mothers. Everything humanity had done to itself. She watched, didn't turn away. Watched until the footage changed, until it showed kindness. A soldier bleeding to save a child. A hand holding another across species. A girl baking for strangers during a bombing raid. A man whispering a joke as he died, just to make the others less afraid. She breathed all of it in. The monster tried to shut her out. She sat cross-legged in the heart of its data core, and began to hum. It was not a battle hymn, not a war chant. It was a lullaby, soft, Terran, sung by mothers who buried sons and fathers who kissed daughters goodbye before the mines. It was the song of grief recycled into defiance, pain metabolized into something tender. The monster trembled. "Why?" it asked. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" She touched the center of its mind. "Because I've been you." It collapsed. Not in fire, not in blood. It just wept. Its body curled in on itself like a child hiding from thunder. And then disintegrated. Ash on windless air. On the orbital screens of the Galactic Empire, the footage went live. Despite no active cameras, despite no signal authorization, every screen, every drone, every relay, broadcaster, walking away from the crater, barefoot, carrying a bowl of untouched soup. Her face wasn't angry. It was tired, not triumphant, just finished. A single line followed her image across all devices. You wanted to see what eats monsters. And then, don't come again. The Empire's inner council sat frozen in the vault. No words, no commands, just the slow understanding that they had mistaken silence for compliance, myth for metaphor, and mercy for weakness. The High Executor finally broke the stillness, his voice dry as dust. Retreat. But one delegate began. She didn't kill it, another said. She forgave it. That's worse, said a third. She became it, whispered the youngest of them, barely audible. She didn't fight the monster. She swallowed it whole. And somewhere, unseen by all, deep within the data archives, a process began. A rewrite. One single line blinking in recursive sequence. Human_culture, adaptive apex. And beneath it, another. Baba_Yaga, weapon or warning. Still processing. Still unresolved.